Dak Prescott, Caleb Williams, and Drake Maye sneak into the top 10 fantasy quarterback ranks, while Tyler Warren is an automatic start at tight end. We reveal our Week 3 fantasy rankings for quarterbacks and tight ends on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Today, we're going to get into our Week 3 rankings, and we're going to start with our quarterbacks and tight ends. We'll get into the rest of the positions on our Wednesday and Thursday shows. Let's start right at the top here at quarterbacks. We have Josh Allen right back at quarterback 1. We're not worried about his last week dud for fantasy. The Bills just didn't need him at all to beat the Jets. And they might not need him to beat the Dolphins, but I still think he's just going to pass all over them to get up that big lead. And then maybe he'll be sitting out the fourth quarter, but who knows? After that, Lamar Jackson staying up there against the Lions. And then we both have Jalen Hurts at number 3 against the Rams. This is where we get a little bit different. Now, Jayden Daniels, I'm keeping at 4. You have him at 5. If he plays, he's in your lineup, right? Like you're not thinking about that. But your quarterback for this week is Patrick Mahomes against the Giants. He's had 2 solid games so far this year. Tell me why you like Mahomes so much against the Giants this week.
Yeah, did you know Mahomes is the 16th leading rusher in the NFL? He has 123 yards, only one, I think actually 122, one less than Christian McCaffrey. So go figure. He has more rushing yards right now than Jahmyr Gibbs. We know that's not going to continue, but it's a nice little bonus if you drafted Mahomes. No one expected him to take off and run this much, and partly because the Chiefs have struggled to generate any kind of offense, so they need him to take off and run. He is their running game right now with Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco struggling. He's had to do this, so he's taking a lot, but they are getting the Giants this week. Look, the Giants wilted pretty fast against the Cowboys. They gave up some big points there. I know they did a good job in the red zone with all those Brandon Aubrey field goals, but it was still a very productive game for the Cowboys offense. I don't think the Giants are all that great at stopping a lot of things here. So I think this is a get-well game. They have to not look past it because they do get the Ravens in the following week. The Chiefs need to win a game. And I think they just need to execute, go out there and do the little things needed. And Mahomes is going to be a big part of that. They're not going to run it well, no matter what they try. They might get a touchdown or something out of those guys. But in terms of production, Mahomes has got to really put this team on his back. And look, between Hollywood Brown and Tyquan Thornton, he's got to find some consistency in this receiving core. Maybe he'll get a break on Xavier Worthy. Maybe Travis Kelce can hold on to the ball here in key spots. So I think Mahomes is doing his best to put up numbers with this group, and he's done it okay so far. I think above expectations with the matchup against the Giants, just too good to ignore. And I think the Chiefs want to just step on the gas and pull away from a team because the first 2 weeks have just been a struggle with those close games late.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because Mahomes through the air, I mean, it hasn't been good at all for fantasy. Just 2 passing touchdowns on the season, 1 interception, 6.5 yards per pass attempt. But the fantasy points are there because of his rushing production, over 50 rushing yards both games, a rushing touchdown in both games. If that ends up, declining in any given game, you're going to be highly disappointed. But you drafted him early. You have him. He's been good for fantasy. You're going to keep playing him. Baker Mayfield's been just a baller. He was so fun to watch last night. But I have him as my quarterback 5. You have him at 7. You have him. You plug him in. Now, this is where it gets interesting because we both are putting Dak Prescott as our quarterback 6 this week against the Bears. I mean, the Bears have been such a bad defense, right? Like JJ McCarthy, who couldn't do anything in week 2 whatsoever against the Falcons, scores 22 fantasy points against the Bears in week 1. And that was with a really bad first half, right? He just did all of that in the second half, pretty much in the fourth quarter. And then in week 2, Jared Goff just goes ballistic on them for 34 fantasy points, 5 touchdowns. So I think Dak Prescott has looked good this year, especially even in week 1. I thought he looked better than week 2, but he scored a lot more fantasy points in week 2 than week 1. But I really like Dak this week against this defense.
Yeah, and the good news is both defenses stink, so that's great. I mean, that means you should get a very high scoring affair. It is the highest total. It's the one that easily cleared 50 points for the week. It is a nice Fox late afternoon window, so you'll get to see a lot of your fantasy players star. Unfortunately, you can trust the Cowboys a lot more than you can with the skill players than the Bears in this one. But again, it's a good matchup for Jake Ferguson. It's a good matchup for CeeDee Lamb. It's a good matchup for George Pickens. The Bears are giving up big plays downfield. They did so to the Vikings. They did so to the Lions. So that's a good thing for George Pickens. So all the weapons are going to be unlocked here for Dak Prescott. And you knew the running game was going to be very supportive here for Dak. It's going to open the play action, all the downfield stuff. So credit Brian Schottenheimer. He's doing pretty well with this offense out of the gate. And again, they're not going to have many problems moving the ball to the Bears. The Bears are just out of sorts, dysfunctional defense. Same could be said for the Cowboys, which is good because you want scoring on both sides to continue the passing fun. I think you'll see that. I have Caleb Williams at 8, and you have Caleb Williams at 8. So we are both high on both these guys, top 10 this week. But Caleb was one of those guys. The team is stunk, and they're not playing well, but he's compiling. He's putting up the numbers through his legs, through his arms. That's what makes fantasy different from reality, and I think Caleb should continue that.
Yeah, I have both Dak Prescott and Caleb Williams as good plays this week. As do you. We have them ranked exactly at the same spot.
Yeah.
Caleb has had one good fantasy week. Well, last week wasn't so 17 fantasy points. It's not like he killed you, but you want him to run a little bit more like he did in week 1. But we expect both of these guys to have really good games. I mean, the Cowboys let Russell Wilson put up 30 fantasy points against them last week. So Caleb Williams, even though he doesn't look great on the field, should be able to come through for fantasy. I had Justin Herbert in between Dak Prescott and Caleb Williams at quarterback 7. You have him at 10. He's looking great. A little bit nervous about the Broncos matchup, but at the same time, Daniel Jones just, it was completely fine against them. So I'm not too worried. If you have him, don't let the matchup scare you off of starting him. And then to finish off here in our top 10, we both have Drake Maye in our top 10. Daniel Jones just misses it. We have them both at 11. But I like both of these guys this week. Daniel Jones at the Titans. Drake Maye gets a really nice matchup against the Steelers this week. And he came through in a nice matchup against the Dolphins last week. You had him high. I was nervous that he wasn't going to be able to do it, but he was able to pull through, get some rushing yards, score 3 touchdowns against those Dolphins defense. And the Steelers defense just does not look good at all. So I think you can keep playing Drake Maye and then keep rolling with Daniel Jones because he's been on fire.
Yeah, I mean, you can file the Dolphins under the Bears and the Cowboys as past defenses. You want to exploit defenses overall in general. The Steelers, are they falling into that category? Well, the biggest thing they've struggled with is the run. But if they can't stop the run, you're not going to be able to get a pass rush because teams are not going to pass against you. But we know Drake Maye is a dual threat. I mean, Drake Maye and Daniel Jones, again, they are clones to me in a lot of the stuff they do. Drake Maye just hasn't been shattered confidence-wise by bad coaching yet. Maybe it'll happen. But when you look at it, I think they're very similar. Big, lanky dudes who can run. They're both from Charlotte. They're the same type of quarterback. So if one is going to do well in a matchup, it's good. Then we'll know the other one can do well in that matchup as well. So it's a lot of fun there. But yeah, I do like Maye better. I mean, he's feeling more comfortable, right? He's got different tight ends working. He's got Kayshon Boutte being a big playmaker. So he's manufacturing offense. The running game is working well with Josh McDaniels. So I do like him a little bit better. Daniel Jones, look, Tennessee can be tricky, but look, Tennessee is just a bad team. So there's going to be opportunities for the Colts to score points again this week.
We are going to get through the rest of our quarterback rankings. You are high on 2 old man quarterbacks this week. We'll get to that right after we hear from a couple of our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is Baker Mayfield notching yet another game-winning drive on national television last night. No one has proved his doubters wrong more than Mayfield over the last couple of seasons. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode is also brought to you by Game Time. The NFL season is back. And honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by fans, cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I always use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. The app makes it super simple, and I can even see the exact view from the seat I want before buying. Just download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL, for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, let's continue our quarterback rankings. And before we get into your old men here, I want to talk about Justin Fields real quick because he is in concussion protocol. But let's say he clears it and he plays. He gets to go against the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers allowed Michael Penix Jr. to have a really good fantasy day, but held CJ Stroud to his usual, right? I don't even want to say to a bad game. It's just CJ Stroud's typical 15-point fantasy game that he had last night. So I'm not worried about the Buccaneers defense at all. Justin Fields, amazing week 1 game, absolutely atrocious week 2 game. And it had nothing to do with the concussion. It was already really, really bad. Before then, he had 27 passing yards, and he only didn't play the last 2 drives of the game. So what are we doing with Justin Fields? Because I'm putting him at quarterback 12 if he plays. I think I'm willing to go back and trust him.
Yeah, I just have him a few notches below because I do like a few other guys that are interesting that I'm going a little against the grain on those guys. But 15, I do think he has a high running floor. I mean, keep in mind, CJ Stroud was basically the rushing offense for the Texans until that Nick Chubb touchdown late on Monday. And then the funny thing is I played Justin Fields there, the prize picks, right? With the 44.5, he hit actually that rushing total that I expected of 48-49. So look, that to me is his rushing floor. I think he hasn't really warmed up here. He hasn't broke 50 yards yet rushing. I think that might come in this game against the Buccaneers if he's out there. And then look, Nico Collins had his way a little bit against the Bucs. You can throw on them. So really the question is, do all three work together, right? Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Justin Fields. If they can all get together and work and play off each other, then they're all going to be successful. If one or two are shut down, then it's the pits for all of them, right? So I think Justin Fields, again, that floor will be higher. I mean, that was just an unusual game, very historically bad passing game that I don't think you're going to see in most weeks.
Yeah, the only worry is that the Buccaneers can be pretty good against the run. And if they can stop Breece Hall, which Breece Hall was having such a good game in week 1, which opened up the passing game for Fields, right? If they can stop Breece Hall, it's going to make the passing game harder. So that's a worry. So I don't expect him to have a huge game, but I still think he's playable. And that's why I have him at quarterback 12. Again, if he does play, make sure to look at his practice status and see if he gets through that concussion protocol before Sunday. Now, you have both Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers at 12 and 13. Stafford gets the tough Eagles defense. Rodgers will be playing at New England. I definitely have them much lower than you. I have Stafford at 18, Rodgers at 21. So explain to everyone why you're really liking these guys this week.
Well, it comes down to also what's going on the other side, right? I mean, Jalen Hurts is going to put up points. Hopefully, we see the Eagles offense open up and have to do some things here instead of just handing off to Saquon Barkley. It's great for Barkley managers, but they want to see these wide receivers involved. And the only way that can work is if the Rams get their wide receivers going. And look, it was a sharp game, sneakily, for Matthew Stafford last week. We were worried about the back injury, but he got in a groove with both of his dudes, right? Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. He was really locked into both of his receivers. These are kind of similar teams in the fact that they got 2 receivers, not much else, and their running game can be good, right? And can take away from their passing. But in this game, I think they're going to have to put it up in the air. I think there's just a lot of things that say, hey, you got to throw on the Eagles to beat them. I know you can run a little bit on them, but overall, they do have some weaknesses in the secondary you can exploit, and they're not the same pass rush as they were just last year. So, again, I think just based on Hurts on the other side doing some things against the Rams, Stafford's going to have volume, much like Maye versus Rodgers. I mean, the Steelers' defense stinks so far. The Patriots' defense has been atrocious as well. I mean, they made the Dolphins look good last week. They made Geno Smith look great, and Geno Smith crashed on Monday night against the Chargers. So, again, there's a lot of defenses that we're picking apart. Everyone always says, hey, the defense starts a lot faster and is better early than the offense. That has been the case. We're seeing record points. Defenses are just bad all around. So, bad defense both sides, which means a lot of points. Fire it up, and that's what we want here. So, I think Rodgers rebounds. I love the matchup for DK Metcalf this week, and that could be it, right? DK Metcalf, Jordan Smith, just a couple of playmakers. That's all you need. And I think Rodgers is on his way for a big game.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The Patriots have allowed over 300 passing yards to both Geno Smith and Tua this year, over 10 yards per pass attempt to those guys. So Rodgers should be able to have a good passing yard game. Hopefully, he's going to need the touchdowns, right? Because he offers nothing in the run game. And that's why I'm a little bit lower on Stafford, too, because even in week 2, he had 2 touchdowns, almost 300 passing yards. Still put up only 17 fantasy points because he offers literally nothing in the running game. -8 rushing yards this year. -8. So you can't even get that 1 or 2 points to get you just that little extra bump from him at all. So that's why I can't rank him too high. But I get your logic there. Now, we are both lower on these 3 guys after good week 2 performances. It's Jared Goff, Bo Nix, and Jordan Love. They all have pretty hard matchups, and they're all on the road. So Jared Goff at the Ravens. We got Bo Nix against the Chargers, and then Jordan Love against the Browns. I'm worried about all those guys this week.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that the Jordan Love game is on the road in Cleveland, where Myles Garrett and the defense. Look, there's still a defense. There's still somebody out there, and I also don't think the resistance is not going to be there. Where the Packers are going to let's get out of this trap game. We're not going to try to mess with this game. We can run, play defense, and win, and so that should be a low volume game for Jordan Love. So that's the concern with him. Bo Nix just hasn't played well. I know they put up some points last week working with Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. But look, I mean, he just has been sloppy, and I'm not thinking that the Chargers are the best spot for him. I mean, you saw what they just did to Geno Smith. They can cause some problems with their pressure and some guys that they have in the back end. So I can't feel confident about Bo Nix. Stroud, I mean, look, he's just limited. He's not startable in any league right now. Jared Goff, again, outdoor guy, not as good, right? And he's had a terrible history against the Ravens in any form with any of his previous teams. So that's a hard one to trust. So there's all things to knock people down. Now, one guy I was going to ask you about real quick is Kyler Murray. We're also down on him. We both have him at 15. I think that's low in general for, I would say, against the grain, right? A little bit. So why do you, or are you down on Kyler Murray? I think I have an idea.
Because the Cardinals offense is so uninspiring. Kyler Murray is so uninspiring. And they played the Saints and the Panthers. Wait, right? The Saints and the Panthers to start the season. 2 of the worst defenses in the league last year. And they're not any better this year. It doesn't look like. But the Cardinals still are just meh. They're not putting up a bunch of yards. Kyler Murray's not putting up yards. James Conner's not putting up yards. I know he connected on that one, nice pass to Marvin Harrison Jr. in week 1, but they still don't have that connection. I hate their play caller so much. So until he gets fired, I'm not interested in this offense outside of Trey McBride and throwing in James Conner for a touchdown that he typically gets. But that's why I have him right at 15, right? He can have a blow-up game here or there. He will. But it's just not exciting enough for me. And he just is always met.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. This is all the things I feel. And you can throw in also the 49ers defense is showing signs of playing much better than it was last year. There's some of the changes, Robert Saleh being back, I think that has been a big influence. And again, tough road matchup for anybody against that defense. Now, the question becomes, we're losing quarterbacks like flies. And unfortunately, it's not just Brock Purdy now. It's no Joe Burrow. Look, if you're relying on Jayden McCarthy, I actually had to start Jayden McCarthy because I didn't have Brock Purdy. So now I have to look for a third quarterback in one league because of this. So again, but there are quarterbacks that are replacing them. Jake Browning getting the Vikings. He's playing Carson Wentz, who's now in that matchup against the Bengals. So much for McCarthy versus Burrow. This is what you get. And then Mac Jones. I mean, he looked pretty good. And then he gets the Cardinals at home this week. So where are you going? Do you feel any of these guys with all those kind of lower guys that we just mentioned?
I think if you need to pick up someone and you're desperate and it's really thin on waivers, I would go with Carson Wentz out of this group because Jake Browning, it's in Minnesota. He threw 3 interceptions against the Jaguars. The Jaguars don't get interceptions, right? He'll get the yards, and I'm sure he'll throw a couple touchdowns, but he's going to throw the interceptions, and I just can't trust him. Mac Jones, yes, good against the Saints, but I guess you can play him in a pinch, but he's going to get you literally 0 rushing yards. And then Carson Wentz, I think at the Bengals, a nicer matchup since being a start, like in his starts since 2022, there's only been 8. It's been 4 really, really good games, 4 really, really bad games. And I'm only looking at games that he had at least 20 pass attempts in those games. The last one was good. It wasn't since week 18, 2023, but 26 fantasy points, had 56 rushing yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns in that game. But like I said, 4 games over 22 fantasy points, and then 4 just atrocious games. So you might get 4 points from him. You could get 26 points from him. Who knows? But I like his matchup the best, and he offers some rushing upside as well.
Yeah, I'm taking Mac Jones out of this equation quickly because he's not going to run and give you anything. We know Jake Browning is willing to run to score. Wentz can run a little bit, but I haven't seen him do anything for a while. So that's my only concern is how rusty is he? He got into the system very late. I know he has some experience because he was with the Rams to knowing what the Vikings might do here, but it's rough. I know it's a nice semi-homecoming for a guy from North Dakota to finally get to start for the Vikings. So there's some excitement there. But right now, the Bengals' weaponry is a little bit better overall because Hawkinson's struggling there. You don't have Addison for the Vikings. It's a Justin Jefferson show where you have Chase, T. Higgins on the other side. So what I'm really hoping for is this game turns into a sneaky, high-scoring battle. I mean, let's hope so. This is disappointing, right? We have Chase and Jefferson in the same game. This should be exciting. This should be a lot of fun. Let's hope they unlock them. But I think I'm going to side with Browning on this one only because I don't think the Bengals are going to change what they do much. They're going to throw a lot to Chase and Higgins, run Brown, and it really comes down to the Vikings. I mean, look, the Vikings' offensive line missing a couple key pieces. That's also been hurting McCarthy early. So, look, the Bengals' offensive line's not good either. So, protect just enough for these guys to have a shootout, please, Vikings and Bengals this week.
All right, let's transition to our tight end rankings. And you just mentioned a guy that's been really, really bad in TJ Hawkinson. And I have him ranked scary high this week. We'll get to that right after we take a quick break.
All right, this episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL is here. It's already week 3, believe it or not, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That is a great deal. Check it out. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, player props, building same-game parlays, or even jumping in live as action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays or play on Thursdays, whenever NFL games are there. Mondays, all good stuff here with FanDuel. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. FanDuel, get in on the action here for week 3. All right, Michelle, it's time to close the show. Tight end has been interesting. I think that's a kind word to use. It's been topsy-turvy, not exactly what we expected, but maybe some clear trends happening with certain players, good or bad. So let's start here. Tyler Ward, this guy, look, we have the usual suspects in our top, right? Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, Sam Laporta, all in our top 4. I got a different guy there in the top 2, and right behind, however, is Tyler Warren. So let's look at that. Let's talk about these two guys, actually, Tyler Warren and Tucker Kraft. So look at Warren. He has been outstanding. He's already the Colts' go-to guy with Daniel Jones. And what did we say? Daniel Jones was going to be great for 2 people, Jonathan Taylor and Tyler Warren. That's happened because he's playing within the offense, short and immediate passing, playing off the running game. Warren's a pretty good blocker as well. So I think this dude's at every week play. Let's just get a touchdown, shall we? And then we're really good, right? I mean, it seems like a thing with McBride and all these Bowers, these young tight ends. Get them into the end zone, folks.
Yeah, that's the thing with Tyler Warren. Like, he's an automatic start because you don't have to worry about the touchdowns, right? He's already the tight end 4 on the season without a touchdown. The 3 guys ahead of him all have at least the 2 top guys have 2 touchdowns. And then Juwan Johnson at 3rd has 1 touchdown. But he's getting the targets. Like you said, he leads tight ends in receiving yards this season at 155 as a rookie in his first 2 games, averaging 14.1 yards per reception. Fantastic for a tight end. And he also leads all rookies at all positions, so wide receivers too, in team target share. So he's a safe bet. You're plugging him in every week. Now, your tight end 2 that you kind of hinted at here is definitely different than mine, right? I have Brock Bowers at 2. You have Bowers at 3. Trey McBride, we both have at 1. But your tight end 2 is Tucker Kraft. He had a huge week 2 performance. I'm still going to be lower on him this week, though. Tight end 8, like, you could still plug him in, but it's at Cleveland. I know it was a great game, but week 1, I mean, it wasn't. All right. We had 1 great game, 1 not. It was only 2 receptions for 16 yards in week 1. He has come down with a touchdown in both of the first 2 weeks. So he could come down with a touchdown again, sure. But this Browns defense is hard and they're at home. So that's why I have him a little bit lower. Why do you have him at number 2?
Yeah, I think the Packers offense is kind of like fooled us because we thought, oh, they have volume at wide receiver, but sometimes quantity is not important as quality, right? Romeo Doubs has scored a touchdown, but Christian Watson's not available. Jen Reed got hurt again. Matthew Golden's not ready to make a lot of plays. So what does that come full circle to Tucker Kraft? Because Luke Musgrave apparently is not a thing anymore. So he's not even trying to get into big plays and all that. So Kraft is certainly split from Musgrave, much like a young Mark Andrews split from Hayden Hurst in Baltimore pretty quickly. And there was a guy, okay, this is the guy, fantasy asset, this other guy's not. And then we went forward, right? So then we're looking at, a guy that's just looking at the ball in very key situations here. And look, he's their one way to move the ball. That isn't Josh Jacobs, right? In the red zone, downfield. He seems to do everything kind of like Tyler Warren in their passing game because they don't have a lot of reliable wide receivers yet, much like the Colts. So it's a lot similar. You're right. The Browns matchup was a little tough, but the Packers should win this game. They should run the ball. They should have an opportunity to get Kraft in the end zone again. So I'm okay with Kraft this week.
I'm okay with Kraft this week too, but you have him real high. So you really
he's going to score. That's why I'm going to lock it in. He's going to score.
All right. I hope he does for you and for everyone who has him. Now, I'm stupid high in TJ Hawkinson this week, and I can't say this makes any sense because he's done absolutely nothing this year, but I have him at tight end 5. You're much lower than him. It makes sense at tight end 12, but he gets the Bengals. We know that's a nice matchup for tight ends. And the reason why I'm willing to put him up there, because I wouldn't just for the matchup if it was still JJ McCarthy, but they're switching to Carson Wentz with the injury to McCarthy, and Carson Wentz has favored tight ends in his past, right? Like the thing with McCarthy and Hawkinson, they just don't seem to have the connection. Like, it's just not working out. But Wentz has targeted tight ends in his career. Zach Ertz, obviously a ton of targets with him in Philadelphia. And then Logan Thomas was actually like fantasy relevant when he had Carson Wentz in Washington as his quarterback. So I do think Wentz looks at Hawkinson and he'll get a good amount of targets in this game in a nice matchup. And that's why I have him as my tight end 5. So if you drafted him and you still have him, I think this is your last shot to try him out and see if it works. And then once JJ's back, you probably have to, bench him again.
Yeah, I had Warren at 5, in between quickly Travis Kelce, Juwan Johnson, Dalton Kincaid with his matchup there against the Dolphins, and then Kyle Pitts, we can talk about him a little bit, Zach Ertz, Jake Ferguson, and then Hawkinson. So I put him at 12 for a reason, to say he's still playable. This is our hope here. New quarterback, Bengals stink at covering the tight end. If it doesn't work with this situation, then we have to be really worried about Hawkinson. But I think there's some tight ends I think we have bigger worries about as well.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Andrews, we have ranked so low. I have him at 19. You have him not even play. Like, you have him not even ranked. Like, don't even play him, right? And maybe he surprises us and comes back and we all look foolish and silly. But how do you keep starting him when he's getting a reception a game, right? We need to see more from him before you can keep plugging him in. So if you're not ready to drop him yet, then put him on your bench and hold him. But I am not playing Mark Andrews at all this week, or Evan Ingram. Or like, I don't want to play David Njoku either against the Packers. Like, there's a lot of bad tight ends that we thought could be relevant or at least be pretty good this year. You mentioned Kelsey. We both have him at 6. He doesn't look good out on the field, but he's still getting he's still fine,
Yeah.
right? That's why if you're the tight end 6 on the week, that means you were just fine. Like, it's not a great week. Juwan Johnson, we both have him at 7. I really like playing Juwan Johnson. He can line up all over the field. The Seahawks allowed 2 touchdowns to tight ends in week 1. Didn't really play a good tight end in week 2 against the Steelers there. But Juwan Johnson leads all tight ends with 20 targets. So maybe we should have him ranked higher. But if you have Juwan Johnson, I think he's a good start. Now, what about Jake Ferguson? He had a really good game in week 2, 12 targets, 9 receptions, 78 yards. But he still doesn't score touchdowns, right? This guy never scores touchdowns. So will he get the targets in this matchup against the Bears? I think Ferguson's a solid enough play. I have him at tight end 10. You have him at tight end 11 this week.
Yeah, I think he's fine there. I mean, he's not going to be spectacular. He's going to be solid for you, and that's just the way it is, right? He's not going to score the way you want. So, again, expect that. But again, this has been very tumultuous. We told you that muddled middle of guys. I mean, Andrews, Ingram, and Njoku. You can go down the line. I mean, the one guy that's emerged from there is Kraft, right? But everything else in that middle has been bad, including Sanders and Hawkinson. So, if you waited a little later, went deep, and got your tight end at the Tyler Warren spot or Jake Ferguson spot in the 12-13, or went deeper and went all the way to Zach Ertz and Juwan Johnson, you're happy about your spot. But again, the other people that are happy kind of are the people who went early, right, with tight end. You've seen it with Bowers and McBride, but only one great game from each right now.
Yeah, and Kittle would have been amazing, but
Poor Kittle.
I'm never going to get over that one until he's back and dominating again. Now, lastly here, I just want to ask you, let's say Jayden Daniels doesn't play, right? He's dealing with a knee injury. If he's out this week against the Raiders, Zach Ertz has been really, really good for fantasy. 15.4 points, 10.1. He scored a touchdown in both games. So is he still playable, though? Like, are you still confident in him if it's Marcus Mariota instead of Jayden Daniels?
Yeah, Ertz, there's something about him. Ever since he arrived in Washington, he's just been like rejuvenated. Like Andrews and Kelsey and Hawkinson look like old men out there, but Ertz is just like bowling guys through into the end zone. There's something. I mean, this guy's just a great athlete, and he loves playing in this offense. You can tell. So I think Ertz has to be a staple here. Ertz and Deebo Samuel right now, until they can figure out how to get the deep passing game going. And Marcus Mariota is not one to force the issue and throw it deep, right? He's going to take what's in front of him and be safe. Jayden Daniels could extend plays, run around, and go deep, but Mariota does not like to make mistakes. So I think he'll be very careful and throw a lot to Ertz and Samuel, much like we've already seen from Washington. So it might be not much changes there, except you don't start the quarterback in Washington.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Like, I have him at 9 right now. We don't know whether he's going to play, but he's not going to move that much either way. You have him at 10. You mentioned Kyle Pitts. You have him at 9. I have him at 11. He's a fine play. Yeah. And it's like Pitts and Kincaid are kind of the same, right? If they get that touchdown, you're going to be happy. Both have good matchups this week, that's for sure. So you can play those guys if you're in a pinch. That will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen of the day. The NFL season is finally here. So for your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler, the madman Roland, gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back to break down our running back rankings for week 3 on tomorrow's show. Don't miss it. Bye, y'all.